seashells by the seashore. I Hello, everybody. It is Monday, May 27th, 2024. Welcome to episode 90 of the Old Mage MTG podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going back in time to 1996 to talk about a set that we actually opened from booster packs. That set is Mirage. It is the namesake set of the Mirage block. We're not going to discuss the whole set today. That's something we'll probably explore over the course of 2 or 3 episodes. Today, we're going to give a little background on the set in general, then highlight some of our favorite commons and uncommons from the set. If you enjoy this podcast, you can support us by giving us a like, subscribing if you haven't already. You can do these things on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're on all those platforms. We're also on Google Podcasts. If you're in the market for cardboard or cardboard accessories, you can pick those up by purchasing them through our TCG affiliate link. We'll have our TCG affiliate link in the description to the video below. If you already want the cardboard or cardboard accessories, you're gonna buy them anyways. You can click our link, purchase them that way. It helps us out for no additional cost to you. We really appreciate anytime anybody does it. It's really exciting. I check our account. I see $1. I see $2. I see sometimes $3 deposited. I get pumped.
Yeah.
Now that that's out of the way, let's get on to Mirage. Just going to talk about some basics of the set. Mirage was Magic's 9th expansion set. It was released either in October 8th or November 1st of 1996. I've seen both of those dates out there. The earlier date might be a pre-release date. You know, they have those pre-release events at LGSs and stuff. I don't know if they used to do those all the way back in 1996 too. If they did, we never went to any of them. But
yeah, I wonder if there was a difference in like boosters versus starter decks too. I wonder if like one came out a few weeks before the other one for some distribution reason. Or
yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But let's just say fall 1996. It is the first set in the Mirage block, which was the first group of sets that was intentionally designed as a block. I remember when this happened for the first time. I really liked that, where we had like 3 sets all in a row that were different. Some, new mechanics were introduced. There were new cards to play with, but some of the same characters were carried throughout. The same storyline was carried throughout.
Yeah, it's like Ice Age was kind of like that, but this they felt like they finally brought it together and were doing it like in an official way.
I enjoyed the coherence between.
Yeah, because you knew what to expect then too. You knew like if they were starting a new block that there would be 2 more sets coming with the same theme.
Yeah, they've gotten away from that now. I can't remember exactly when they went away from the block. The block construction of their sets, of their releases. I think it was fairly recently. I don't know why they did that.
I was gonna say I don't think it was that long ago, but then I figured I'd just shut up.
No, it was fairly recent. I don't remember exactly what. So Mirage is set on the major supercontinent of Jamura on the plane of Dominaria.
I love supercontinents.
It's the first set with an African theme. And this is the setting for Mirage and the 2 other sets in the block that we're going to discuss in later episodes, Visions and I wrote Prophecy.
I was looking at that. I was like, what?
I think I screwed that. Mirage, Visions, Weatherlight. I don't know why I wrote Prophecy. But it's a large set. There were lots to discover when we were opening the boosters. That's what I remembered. There was like it took a while to see all the cards, just opening the packs, talking to people about what they got. It was a huge set. The main memory I have from Mirage when I was opening it is that it was vibrant. The cards themselves were vibrant. The colors were vibrant. This was a major difference from the sets that you and I and the people in our play group had opened before this set came out, like Fallen Empires, Homelands. Ice Age. Everything was.
They were all kind of drab. Yeah.
Washed out colors. Dark. Foreboding.
Even the dark before that was like
even the dark
cool theme, but like visually pretty.
visually, yeah, gothic, dark in a different way. The
Yes, in a
the
better way.
actual, yeah, I'm talking about dark in a better way. I'm talking about like the actual like ink
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and coloration and like Fallen Empires, Ice Age, Homelands. It's just not
Yes.
that exciting to look at. Mirage was finally something that was exciting to look at again.
Yeah. The splashes of color look cool. Yeah.
Because I remember Legends and Arabian Nights, which we didn't have the pleasure of opening.
Hmm.
Those were exciting to look at. You would show up at the
Yeah.
LGS. There would be some of the older guys with their sets. You would see Ali from Cairo, Ali Baba, all these Island of Wak Wak.
Bloodlust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy art,
The
things
bright
that
green
looked
cards, a whole
exciting.
bunch of bright green cards. Yeah. Uh,
Mirage
for
had
sure.
those kind of vibes. The art direction was the highlight of the set for me, in my opinion. A couple new mechanics were introduced. I saw you over there typing, Alex. Were you making sure that Prophecy wasn't the third set of the Mirage block?
No,
Which it
I was
definitely
just
isn't,
typing
but
in Mirage block to pull it up.
okay. It's definitely Mirage Vision's Weatherlight, right?
Yeah, not
I don't know
prophecy.
why.
No, I knew it wasn't prophecy.
I
Yeah.
don't know why I wrote Prophecy in the notes. We did not open Prophecy.
No.
A couple of new mechanics were introduced in Mirage. One was flanking.
Yeah.
So I pulled this up. Flanking is
Big
a key.
news, I felt like at the time.
I liked it. I still do like it,
Mhm.
to be honest. Flanking is a keyword ability that gives creatures that block a creature with flanking -1/-1, unless the blocker also has flanking. With two exceptions, those being Sidewinder Sliver, which is a sliver that gives all your other slivers flanking, and Old Fogey, which is one of those goofy unhinged or unglued cards.
It sounds like. Yeah.
It appears on it appears only on knights on horseback or centaurs.
Oh, neat. Okay. I didn't know
So
that.
knights on
I mean, it
horseback
makes
or
sense
centaurs,
flavor-wise.
or one particular sliver, or the Old Fogey card, which I believe is a card with T-Rex on the art, and it has like all of the old
Oh,
silly
yeah.
mechanics. It's a creature with like flanking, banding, rampage, maybe phasing. I don't know, like all the old mechanics for creatures that they don't really use anymore. Flanking is a 7 on the storm scale. R&D considers
Mm.
flanking's problem to be its lack of flanking against other flankers, which was not understood by the majority of players. So
Are they? I saw this and I didn't really understand what it meant. Does that just mean that people didn't understand the unless the blocker also has flanking part of it?
yes,
Like
that's
they
what
just
I
didn't know that that was part of the rule. Oh, because I mean, we always played like that. We knew that flanking neutral. I thought it said it right on the cards, didn't it?
well, let me pull up a flanker real quick.
Maybe not.
I'm gonna pull one up off screen. Yes, this does not seem confusing to me at all. I'm gonna pull up a centaur, a particular centaur from Mirage. I'm gonna read the text on it because it does describe flanking. This centaur says flanking. Whenever a creature without flanking is assigned to block this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So yes, right here at the beginning of flanking, it did state directly on the card that whenever a creature without flanking is assigned to block, then it gets
Yeah.
the -1/-1, which would mean if you block a flanker with a flanker, then your flanker would not get -1/-1. But somehow, according to the information I've read on MTG Wiki, that was confusing to people. And
That's
because of
strange.
that, they assigned it a 7 on the storm scale.
I'm puzzled.
Lack of flanking against other flankers, which was not understood by the majority of players. I don't know. Not everybody likes to read the cards, you know. They say reading the card explains the card, but sometimes people don't like to read the cards. I like flanking. I liked it when it came out because I enjoy combat Magic. So I have a preference and I enjoy new mechanics that add different dimensions to combat. Right. So
I liked
I
it.
was
I
a fan
remember
of
when it
flanking.
came out being fairly impressed by it because I thought like, oh, here's a new mechanic, but I feel like it still fits the game and it doesn't like, whatever, break things, but it's not underpowered. I felt like it was just a good fit overall. It felt like a magic, like what am I trying to say? Not rule, but like a mechanic. So it seemed at home and I thought it was kind of cool. It added something new to the game.
Yeah.
the other question I had was when I saw this about the storm scale, I wonder what shadow is on the storm scale
Oh,
according to,
I
because
have
it's
no
kind of the
idea.
same exact issue, right? Maybe not.
I can't remember the
Shadow is
rules
just
with,
like completely unblockable, so that's different.
yeah, that's what I thought. Like a shadow creature can't block another shadow creature, right?
So that would be probably in their minds even more problematic according to the storm scale,
I don't know.
I would think.
Google it. Google right there, over there on your end. What is shadow on the storm scale? I'm sure it'll pop up. I was surprised that the flanking was 7 on the storm scale. I would expect it to be lower. I don't see it being any more problematic than something very basic like
Yeah,
first strike. It seems like very basic combat
yeah.
mechanic. While you're looking that up, I want to mention a couple different rulings of note regarding flanking. Flanking only triggers when a creature with flanking becomes blocked, not when it blocks. So this is a bonus you only get when you're attacking with your flanker, not when you're
Yeah.
blocking with your flanker. 2, this may kill the blocker prior to damage being assigned in combat, but the
Yes.
attacker is still blocked. So that's something that I didn't remember until I reread this, which means, the -1/-1 is applied during the declare blocker step. So you declare blockers. That's when the -1/-1 is applied to the blocker. So if a
Yeah.
creature will be put in the graveyard due to the -1/-1, that creature will deal no damage even if it has first strike.
Yeah, that seems straightforward to me, or it seems logical to me.
So just a couple rules of note.
By the way, Mark Rosewater said Shadow is an 8 on the storm scale in his blog.
Why? Did he explain?
I remember we talked before about that briefly about how they didn't like Shadow and didn't want to use it again because they thought it made the game like you can't respond to it really. You know what I mean? It made for
Okay.
situations where like there wasn't like what I don't know how you want to describe it, but
Makes the
functional back and forth play. It was like less fun for one person, and yeah.
makes the game less interactive. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
do know that, like, after I asked why, I remembered that the storm scale isn't just about how confusing a mechanic is to people, but also it's
Or
related to whether or not it promotes the type of gameplay R&D is looking
yeah, or is too
for,
strong even,
or is
like
too strong. Yeah.
flat out broken, or because I think that's kind of
That is where the storm
how
scale
it
came
started
from.
with the
Yeah.
storm. Yeah.
So is it too strong? Is it too confusing? Does it not promote interaction and fun gameplay? I
Yeah, yeah.
think those are multiple things that go into where
I
they
still think
place stuff.
Shadow's kind of okay. I mean, I don't know. I guess you're kind of locked in. If you want to use it, you have to keep making, like, if you want to have it around in the game, you have to keep printing things with Shadow. And if you print things with Shadow, you have to have like opposing things with Shadow as blockers in different colors. And like, you have to give people options to block Shadow creatures. So it does kind of lock them into like a design, decision. Uh,
I'm typing something else in right now. I don't see a problem with it. It's all about what kind of power toughness you assign to the shadow creature. Because shadow,
True.
when you think about it, all it is a creature with a fear slapped on it, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It's still
kind of what it
susceptible to
is.
any kind of removal. Uh, it's just not really blockable.
Yeah, defending creatures with shadow can block attacking creatures with shadow. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's nothing particularly problematic about printing 2/2s with fear or 1/1s with fear.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Shadow.
And the same thing, since you mentioned fear, it's kind of like an original mechanic of the game.
It is, yeah.
It's.
So
Anyways, back
that's
to your flanking rulings, if you
that's
wish.
flanking. Those are the only two rulings I really wanted to highlight. Nothing really
Oh, okay.
confusing there. I just, the -1/-1 is applied during the declare blocker step before the damage is actually assigned. The second new mechanic, this one I did not like as much as flanking. This one I do find in some cases that it could be quite confusing. And also, generally, I just found it to be a bit annoying. That was my biggest issue
Me
with
too.
this mechanic. This mechanic is phasing. So this is the other new mechanic they introduced during Mirage. Phasing was a bit
I'm
annoying.
totally with you on this. I can't stand phasing. I'm happy to just kind of like black out that part of like magic and pretend it doesn't exist. Like, don't like it.
You're having flashbacks to playing against somebody's phasing deck in particular, I think. Somebody's blue phasing
A
deck.
little bit, yeah. Ryan, our friend Ryan had a blue and white phasing deck, I believe. But just overall, I mean, just what we were talking about, it really goes against like interactivity in play. Like it makes
Yeah.
things like unable to be dealt with or targeted, in a lot of situations. And I don't know, it just slows down the game. And I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. I can take another look at it, but
Do you not know, Alex? Or do you know?
I
You
think
do
I know.
know
I
that it's
think I know.
annoying. Okay. What is phasing? Phasing is a mechanic where permanents may phase out, causing them to be treated as if they don't exist until they automatically phase back in on their next untap step. This is according to MTG Wiki. This can be a protective action or a means to temporarily disable an opponent's permanents. Phasing is primarily in white, secondary in blue. Unlike similar concepts like flickering, a phased out permanent remains the same object, and so it retains counters, artifacts, and choices made during the life of the object. I'm
You
not
said
as
artifacts, but
familiar.
it says attachments.
Attachments, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said artifacts because I saw A. And so it retains counters, attachments, and choices made during the life of the object.
Okay.
I'm not used to referring to attachments, which is probably why my brain just didn't want to say that. Counters, enchantments. I'm guessing if I click on this attachments, it'll talk about enchantments and like things
It's
like
probably
equipment,
auras and equipment.
which didn't exist, when we played.
Yeah.
When permanents phase, they do not change zones or leave the battlefield. So no enter the battlefield or leaves the battlefield triggered abilities trigger. So that's a very important
That's
thing to
partially
keep in
confusing
mind.
to me because it seems like it does leave the battlefield.
This is why I think so when we were talking about the storm scale earlier, my mind initially went to things being high on the storm scale because they can get confusing during gameplay.
Uh-huh.
I think this is the main problem with phasing. They can get confusing during gameplay because there's so many things to constantly keep track of every other turn, and things to remind your opponent of or to remind yourself of. Oh, that has phasing. I don't play against or with a lot of creatures with phasing. What happens if it has entered the battlefield effects or leave the battlefield effects? Not everybody's going to remember these things all the time. But yeah, things with enter the battlefield or leave the battlefield triggers do not trigger when they phase in and out. Also, if it's a creature, it does not cause summoning sickness. So it can attack and use activated abilities with a tap or untap symbols. In their activation cost during the turn, it phases back in. So when it comes back in, like I just mentioned earlier, it's not re-entering the battlefield. It was on the battlefield. It was just phased out.
Bullshit.
So now it has no summoning sickness. Alex does not like this
Was it there or
mechanic.
wasn't it?
Was it or was it not?
It was not there.
The answer
I
is neither.
claim.
But it wasn't not there.
That's maybe also true.
That's the key. Phasing exists as both a keyword action and a keyword ability. The discontinued phasing is really the keyword ability type of phasing, I
Yeah,
think.
where it's like automatically on a cycle of phasing because
Yes.
it has that ability.
Keyword abilities describe properties that a card has indefinitely. So they are somewhat different than keyword actions, which players take at discrete points in gameplay. Creatures with phasing as a keyword ability, they're constantly going to be oscillating between phased in, phased out, phased in, phased
Yeah.
out. That's a lot to keep track of, I think, potentially. If you're
By the way,
playing
this
somebody,
says on the storm scale, phasing is a 9,
yes,
but then phase out keyword action
a
is a
two,
2.
a two.
So they apparently are fine with making things phase out as like I don't know why I just did air quotes there, but they're apparently okay with making things phase out as an action, like
Yeah.
a solitary action, but not giving them phasing as an ability.
And I don't know what the exact reason is for that, but in my mind, it's a lot less to keep track of every other turn. It's just an action that's taken once. Okay, something has happened to this creature or this number of permanents this one time. That's easy to track. I got that figured
Yeah.
out. It's not something you have to keep in your head every other turn.
And less conducive to setting up a lock, probably,
Yeah. Yes. So
If
that's
it's just
phasing.
fades out, it's more sort of like a downside to the creature, that maybe only happens once or happens in certain circumstances.
Those are the basics of phasing. Again, phasing Mirage Block was a bit annoying. I do like that it allowed for new types of strategies revolving around, board wipes and things like that. You could phase stuff out, wipe the board, retain your creature. So it allowed for a new type of gameplay, but in general, I didn't like those cards that phased in and out every other turn or phased a bunch of other permanents in and out every other
Yeah,
turns.
I kind of agree with you. I like sort of the idea in the Magic universe, like, how it fits flavor wise.
Mhm.
I think they could have just maybe like done a little better as all, I don't know, just had the ability function a little bit differently.
It is good as a keyword action. You can still take advantage of it in the context of, board wipes or in combination with board wipes and stuff
Yeah,
like
if you
that.
give a creature an activated ability like one blue, it could phase out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like giving a creature regeneration or something.
Mhm. But okay. Those were, I think, the only two mechanics introduced in Mirage: flanking, one that I enjoy, phasing,
Sounds right.
one that I don't enjoy as much. Now onto the cards in Mirage. There are 350 cards in Mirage: 110 commons, 110 uncommons, 110 rares, 20 basic lands. This was a set that was meant to be drafted. So there, the new land art for all the basics here in Mirage. Also happen to be some of my favorite lands to play with to this day.
Yeah, beautiful lands.
Today we're going to talk about just the commons and the uncommons for Mirage. Not all of them. We ain't got time for that. Just some of the commons and the uncommons that I find to be the most interesting or the most fun to play with. I read a statement about the commons for Mirage on the Killing a Goldfish blog. Alex, this is a blog that we've discussed before on the show. It was the impetus for our review of the Ice Age blog.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He has on this Killing a Goldfish blog, the author has different posts covering a lot of the old sets, a lot of the old blocks. He says about Mirage, drafting started for real with Mirage block. People had been doing it since before the game was even released, thanks to Bill Rose, which means that Menagerie probably had a lot of draft testing. Menagerie, uh, that was the
Code name.
the code name
Right.
for
Yeah.
the Mirage set before it came out. He then goes on to say, unfortunately, their first attempt at making a format for drafting was a bit rough. The commons are almost all closer to the quality of Fallen Empires cards than they all are to alliances. So, in his opinion, the commons from Mirage weren't the strongest, and I think it is true. The commons aren't the strongest. They're not nearly as powerful as some of the commons from the next set, which is Visions, which
Yeah.
we've discussed those previously on the podcast. We have an earlier episode of the podcast that's all about the killer commons from Visions.
And for me, like I didn't really remember that because thinking back, it's hard for me to not kind of combine the sets to some
Mhm.
degree.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I didn't really specifically remember that Mirage had weak commons, but when I started looking through this list and I realized how few cards we have to discuss, and then looked at some of the other ones, and I was kind of like, yeah, I remember opening a lot of these and being like, that stinks.
Well, that's what I thought too. So when I was originally deciding what to talk about today, I was like, oh, we can start with the commons. This is a huge set. There's 110 commons. Well, I changed it to commons and uncommons because there just aren't that many commons that I want to talk about from Mirage. Not to say there aren't any good ones. There are some fun ones to play with. It's not a set where the commons were like real gas.
And also some of
Full
them
of
are
illusion.
reprints too, right? So they're not
Yes,
like new to Mirage.
the most expensive common from Mirage is actually just a reprint of Dark Ritual. People like the people like the Mirage art for Dark Ritual out of the old frame sets. There are no expensive commons from Mirage, really. I think the Mirage Dark Ritual comes in at like $1 or $1.50, and that's literally the most expensive common you can pick up from Mirage. We're going to discuss the ones that I like, the ones that Alex likes right now. Starting with Rampant Growth. Yeah, so you see right here, Dark Ritual, $1.22. So the most expensive common from Mirage right now is Dark Ritual. Second, Memory Lapse, also a reprint from Homelands. I think potentially Memory Lapse might have been first designed for Mirage, but Homelands ended up coming out earlier.
Oh, huh.
I could be wrong about that. I think that's how it happened. But Rampant Growth. Rampant Growth is a card that probably just about everybody who plays Magic knows. I think this gets a lot of play in Commander nowadays. It's 1 colorless, 1 green. It's a sorcery. You search your library for a basic land card, put it into play tapped. You shuffle your library afterwards. Its first printing was in Mirage. There are too many reprints to list. It's been reprinted like crazy. It has a rating of 4.134 on Gatherer. This card provides you ramp. It provides you mana fixing. It's not insanely powered because you still need to grab a basic. You can't just grab any land. You can't even grab a dual land back in the day because it doesn't just say, oh, wait, hold on. Should I say that?
What do you
It
mean?
says basic. It says basic. It doesn't say
Yeah.
like grab a forest or grab a plains. Yeah. You have to grab a basic land.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not like overly powered or anything, and that land comes into play tapped.
It does
But
give you a shuffle effect if you're playing like with a Sylvan Library, for example. It gives you some, you get to
yes,
reset your top cards or whatever.
does give you a shuffle effect.
But everything like this does.
But there wasn't much like this at the time, other than
No.
I think Nature's Lore from Homelands, which is another card that allowed you to potentially get off. I don't even remember if that was any basic land or if it might
I
have
think
just
it's
been
a
a forest. I think it's a forest too. Nature's Lore. So with Nature's Lore, it says forest.
So you could
Search
get
your
a boom.
library for any forest, put it directly into play, so you could grab it, and it's not tapped. So Nature's Lore, you could go grab a Savannah, you could grab a Taiga. It wouldn't go into play tapped, and it doesn't count as your 1 land per turn. Well, neither does this, but so I guess well, what I'm trying to say is there wasn't much like this at the time that you could play, to do this, to go through your library and grab a land. I know there are other things nowadays that people like to run, like cultivate cards that aren't present in the old frame
Mhm.
sets. I don't know when cultivate was first printed, potentially in Plane Chase, maybe. But it's a modern card only. It's a new frame card only.
Oh, okay.
And cultivate, I think, is better because it's 2 colorless, 1 green, sorcery, search your lane for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards, put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle your library. 1 more mana that allows you to get 2 cards.
Yeah, okay. And then in pre-modern, I mean, there's still several others. There's like Harrow and crop rotation.
Yeah, yeah.
Several, probably more that I'm forgetting.
But Rampant Growth and Nature's Lore was, before all of those. There wasn't a lot out there at the
Yeah.
time. And I think this still gets played just because people like this effect. This is a good effect, and then Magic's biggest format is a singleton format. So you might want to run a Nature's Lore and a Rampant Growth and a Cultivate.
And this is good for a set that's, designed with drafting in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's about it. That's all I have to say about Rampant Growth. It's just a solid little common. Nice little mana fixing, nice little bit of ramp. That's a nice little card to draft, a nice little card to put in constructed decks. The second common from Mirage that I want to talk about is one that I play a lot more. And it's a card that also provides you with a little bit of ramp. It also happens to be a wall. It is Wall of Roots.
Yeah.
It's 1 colorless, 1 green, 0/5. So that's a great blocker for early game. Get this guy out on turn 2. It's probably going to block most things that are coming your way, especially from this era.
Mhm.
You're not going to be facing a lot of creatures with 5 power or greater out on turn 2 that your Wall of Roots can't handle. And you can put a -0, -1 counter on Wall of Roots. If you do so, add 1 green to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. Use this ability only once each turn. So on turn 2, you can have an 0/5 blocker. And on turn 3, you can use this to give yourself a little bit of ramp. Potentially have 4 mana available on turn 4 to play out something a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
This was always one of my favorites. If you like playing mid-range decks, like I do, it buys you time against the fast, aggressive decks, and at the same time, it helps you ramp out your own threats. So
Mhm.
very
Yeah, I started
solid
playing
card.
these immediately when it came out. I was like, oh, this will go in my green deck.
First printing in Mirage, multiple reprints since then, rating of 4.306 on Gatherer. Don't know if people still play it these days much in Modern. Still gets played a lot in pre-modern decks. It's in plenty of pre-modern decks. A lot of green pre-modern decks run either Wall of Roots or Wall of Blossoms from Stronghold.
I was just going to mention Wall of Blossoms. I have trouble deciding between the two sometimes. I know they do
So do
different
I.
things. Like, uh,
I do the same thing. Wall of Roots gets the nod in decks where my goal is to try to ramp out fatties.
mhm.
I have a deck that I'm working on right now that's focused very much on ramping out fatties. Wall of Roots goes in because it provides me with that little bit of extra mana. But
Yeah,
most of the time I might like Wall of Blossoms better. Especially if I have recursion in the same deck. I prefer the ability to repeatedly draw cards. I mean, that's just better
yeah,
than getting an extra mana multiple turns with their Wall of Roots, bringing
yeah.
down
Because
its
you already
toughness.
might have gotten 5 mana out of it. You know, you could have been using the Wall of Roots for multiple turns to give yourself mana already. Like, yeah. So I
But
agree. I'd rather.
that's pretty much how I make my decision. If I have recursion in the deck, it's usually Wall of Blossoms instead. Next common, this was another common that I really liked from Mirage. A Bane of the blue
Oh,
mage.
this was huge when it came out.
This was huge. We've talked about this randomly on the show before too. Caravec's Torch. Caravec's Torch is 1 red X. It's an X spell. In some cases, a souped up fireball. Fireball can do some things that Caravec's Torch can't do, but in many cases, you'd much rather have a Caravec's Torch in your hand. This was a real finisher, and I'd imagine this was probably a killer in Mirage era draft.
Yeah.
First printing in Mirage, only other printing is in something called mystery booster cards.
Huh.
So they don't reprint the torch. I don't know if they've printed something that's like a strictly better torch or even something that's almost exactly like the torch, but just not called Caravec's torch, or if they decided they don't want this card to be reprinted. I don't know. But it is a sorcery, and it says interrupts that target Caravec's torch each cost an additional 2 colorless to play. So this was really to screw over counterspells, which at this time when this card was printed were interrupts. Now everything is just an instant.
Mhm.
Correct? It's interrupts don't even exist anymore, I think.
Yeah.
Caravec's torch deals X damage to target creature or player. So your blue mage friends would keep their 2 untapped for their counterspell, for their mana drain. They'd think they'd be safe. You'd bust out the torch. It would be all
Nuts to
over for
that.
them. They thought they had a trick in their hand. They're screwed. They're shit
Yeah.
out of luck.
This was really huge back then because there wasn't anything else like this yet. There you had Fireball, you had Disintegrate, you had I think like one more that I'm forgetting for red X spells, like your standard red X spells, each of them working slightly different way. Um, but I don't I think this is probably true, but like a lot of the stronger decks back then were at least partially counterspell based.
Yes.
People were running counter spells pretty heavily, I feel like, just around, at least in our groups of, people we played. And, trying to finish them with a fireball and then getting counter spell was like really common and frustrating. So this was a nice. I felt like it kind of put things back into balance a little bit
Yeah.
from where they had been, as far as counter spells just being like a really powerful thing in the game.
It gave a little bit of trickery to the red deck. It's,
Mhm.
trickery wasn't all on the side of the blue mage any
You
longer.
had to plan a little bit better, maybe if you wanted to counter that
Yeah.
big spell.
And
And this, what was surprised, when this came out, it surprised me that they didn't make the casting cost even more, because it's just the same exact casting cost as a disintegrator or fireball.
yeah,
Um, and I would say I don't know, maybe I don't want to say that. I don't want to say the upside is better because it's just different, but like
I think it is better because
I
most
think it's
of the
better.
time you didn't use your fireball to blow up like multiple 1/1s or like a couple
Right.
1/1s and a 2/2 or something. Most of the time you just used your fireball to finish the game or to get rid of a particularly chunky creature that your opponent had on the board that you couldn't get rid of
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah.
But
Oh
most of
yeah,
the
I
time
do
it was
think
to finish the game, to bring the life points down to 0. And the torch just did that better.
Mhm. Yeah.
The disintegrate also, it's like its upside is you can't regenerate,
Pretty
but
niche. Yeah.
yeah, that was niche.
Helps you out sometimes, but it's not like you're, going into most games expecting to use that.
Yeah. So a killer X spell. I said a perfect way to screw over a blue mage that's sitting on the other side of the table with a smug look on their face because they have 2 untapped islands. Even pitch spells cost 2. So this came out before the no, what am I talking about? So this made your force of will cost 2 too,
Oh yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that,
Even pitch
but I
spells
guess it
cost 2.
is now I remember.
The only downside, it's worse for you if you want to fork it.
Oh, good point.
I shouldn't say only downside. That's the downside that popped into my head.
Good
If you want to
point.
fork it, not good. Next, common. This is a common that I like, but I end up not playing very often. Not common. I'm typing in common. Goblin. Tinkerer. Goblin Tinkerer. Goblin Tinkerer is a summon goblin. It's 1 colorless, 1 red, 1/2. You can pay a red and tap it to destroy target artifact. That artifact deals an amount of damage equal to its casting cost to Goblin Tinkerer. First printing in Mirage, only other printing and is in anthologies. So again, not a card that's reprinted very often. It's only 22 cents. I like the Tinkerer, but I find it not making the cut for me a lot. I mess around with premodern goblins. I have a stock red-green premodern goblin list that I run sometimes. I have another premodern goblin deck that I'm messing around with. That's a little bit more unusual. But in both cases, the Tinkerer, it just doesn't. I just end up not putting him in very often, or if I do, he comes out. He's just a little too fragile and too slow. So I think most of the time he bites the dust before he does what you want him to do. He has to come out and then he has to sit there and he has to last another turn for you then to tap him and feed a red into him. I guess if the best case scenario is you also have that goblin that gives all your goblins haste
I
before
was
you
just about to
play the
say in
goblin
red,
tinker.
haste, you might try using some haste mechanics with it if you're worried about it sitting around.
So I was thinking it becomes better if you have a goblin war chief, he costs 1 less, and a goblin chieftain gives haste on the board. So if you have some goblin synergy out there, that can make your tinker even better. But on its own, most of the time, in my decks, I want to have something that's going to get rid of an artifact a little bit more reliably for me
Uh-huh.
than the tinker. The tinker is just, in some cases, too fragile and too slow. I'd rather be able to cast my natural eyes or cast a meltdown or something.
Yeah, I like it, but just better to be in the sideboard in case you have a problematic like
Mhm.
artifact deck or low casting cost artifact deck.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think he's sideboard if you need even more artifact removal than what you usually have. And then even then, I don't know if I play him. I end up not playing him a lot. I like
A lot
him.
of
This falls
options
into
these
the
days.
There's a lot of options. That's a problem. This falls into the category of cards that I like, but I end up not playing a lot. Maybe if I had a Goblin Commander deck, he would go in
Okay.
because of the singleton nature.
Mhm.
And I really like the art.
I keep thinking of like trying to mix it with black and maybe like either recursion or something that like gives it regeneration.
Yeah, if you're working in a deck where you can bring things back from your graveyard, it does make them all of a sudden better.
Or maybe like some like damage prevention in white, ward type effects.
Yeah.
Uh, with Mother of Runes, could you choose colorless as the source so that the artifact dealing the damage could be negated, protected?
I think you can.
I have to look up how colors work again. I should remember that.
And with Mother of Runes, can you choose colorless? MTG question mark. Somebody says my guess is no. No, that's not an answer. I've encountered a bug where Giver of Runes. I don't know. Look that up, maybe, Alex.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be able to find it. Colorless isn't a color.
Okay,
This is just from Tumblr, but it's
I remember.
from Magic Judge Tumblr. Colorless isn't a color, so you can't protect the creature from Barrage Tyrant with Mother of Runes. I don't know what Barrage Tyrant is, but I'm assuming that it is some sort of artifact. Add this to the list of questions we've asked before. I know this is a question we've asked before.
Yeah, I know we've
I've
talked about
forgotten.
colors and what, and I know I've read that like 50 times too. I just couldn't remember on the fly. It takes me a minute to think about some of these things sometimes. I have to go look
Barrage
them back.
Tyrant is a red creature. Barrage Tyrant from Battle of Zendikar, 4 colorless, 1 red, 5/3 Eldrazi. It has Devoid. This color has no color.
Mm,
Or sorry, this card has no color.
that's why.
Okay, so that might even be an edge case. I don't know if that necessarily answers my question, but I think it does. Anyways, it's Goblin Tinkerer. We got a few more commons on the list. The next one is another one that I enjoy. It's a green Savannah Lion. It is Matenda Lion, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mtenda Lion.
Yeah,
Mtenda
I
Lion.
was called it Matendalion. Maybe I was wrong. Yeah.
I never thought about that until right now, as I was saying it out loud. I have also called it Matenda Lion for 20 years.
In the picture, you can tell he's like, "How do you say my name?"
He does look very, I don't know,
He's
pensive,
mopey. He looks sad.
sad. It's 1 green, 2/1. Summon Lion. Just like Savannah Lions. If Matenda Lion attacks, defending player may pay 1 blue to have it deal no combat damage. This turn, the first and only printing is in Mirage. So if you want your Matenda Lion, you have to buy the original printing, and you can still get it for only 18 cents. It has a rating of 4.076 on Gatherer. It doesn't see much play because of the sheer number of great creatures in green that compete for that 1-drop spot, including all your manimals, like your mana elves, your birds of paradise. But it does have excellent flavor. And that kind of puts it into a special category for me, a card that I almost want to play just because it has cool flavor. I like this blue. I've heard this interpreted different ways. So I always saw this downside. Defending player may pay blue to have it deal no combat damage this turn. In my mind, I imagined somebody squirting a cat with a water bottle and running away. So it was always funny to me. That's what I enjoyed.
Well, in the quote, it says, "The lion drank that lake right up." So
And
maybe
bangs,
he was a really, really thirsty lion, and the player pays the blue to give him a drink, and then he chills for a turn.
that's how other people, yeah, have interpreted it. And then you
Okay.
just settle them down. But I don't think that's what happens if you try to give a lion a drink. I think it takes the drink and then it eats you. I
Although
prefer to think of it as a cat running away from
maybe
water.
it's the second part. It says, "In thanks, he gave CD the power to speak with lions and make them leave the goats alone." So maybe that's what the paying of the blue is. Leave the goats alone because I have the power.
Okay. Just forget about the flavor text and just imagine spraying a cat with a water bottle and the
Yes,
cat running away. That's funnier. It's more entertaining to me.
This is good, and I don't think I ever played it um back then because kind of like what I was saying a minute ago, we had dual lands and almost everyone had like blue mixed into their deck.
Yeah.
with dual lands, so it was just kind of like they could shut it down easy.
Yeah, they could shut it down. There's almost no, let me think. I mean, green, if you're playing a fast green aggro deck, you don't want your people to be able to prevent your one drops from attacking, right? You got to push that damage through fast, and you have other options. Not only, like I said, in the one drop are you competing with all the manimals, all the cards that provide you ramp, but there's also plenty of other green one drops with 2 power or other
Yeah.
ways you can push 2 power out early in the game. So why choose the 2 power creature that your opponent could potentially turn back?
Only if you had sweet line effects.
But in draft,
Yeah, maybe better in draft. Yeah.
definitely. I mean, if I wanted to play green in draft and I'm playing Mirage, I see that Matenda line, I go for it. It's a nice card. Everything about it's nice. I liked it. I like the design. From a play perspective, it's fun. Art's good. Strong contender for a top common in Mirage. Next common I want to discuss for Mirage is pacifism. Pacifism is 1 colorless, 1 white. It is an enchant creature. Enchanted creature cannot attack or block. So that's all. You
That's
pay
all.
2 mana. You drop the pacifism on a creature. It just sits there. First printed in Mirage, too many reprints to count. It's been reprinted like crazy. Kind of surprised me. Not that it's a bad card or anything, but I just didn't know this is one they would want to reprint over and over and over again. Has a rating of 4.295 on Gatherer. For me personally, I've always enjoyed this card, but it never quite makes the cut because when I want to neuter my opponent's creatures with an enchantment, if that's something I want to do, I always end up playing Spirit Link instead because I can also use Spirit Link to my own benefit by playing it on my own creatures.
Yeah.
But this is especially good in some cases where your opponent's creatures have a downside. The Jazam Jin, the Serendib, the Force of Nature. I think I might want to pacifism instead. If it sits on a Jazam Jin, their Jin just sits there and does a damage to them every turn. Serendib just sits there and does a damage to them every turn. Force
They'd
of
be doing that
Nature.
with the Spirit Link too, though. So your first point's still like,
That
if you
is also
Spirit
true.
Link the Jin.
That is also true.
Yeah.
That is true, Alex. I should have thought that
Well,
before I started saying it.
it's okay. Well, when I look at this, I think of, I know it's different color now, but it reminds me of Paralyze in black, which I also want to try using more, maybe. I never really used to play with it when I was a kid. The thing I like about Paralyze is they can tap something, so now they can't use it if it's like a utility creature.
Yes.
Pacifism just stops the attacking and blocking.
Yeah.
Of course, then downside to Paralyze, and Paralyze is also 1 mana cheaper, but downside to Paralyze is that they could spend their way out of it to untap it with 4 mana. So, this is also rated higher. I looked up Paralyze just to see. It's not rated as highly as Pacifism on Gatherer for what that's worth.
Wait, which one's rated higher?
Pacifism is rated higher.
Okay.
You said 4.2 or something like that?
What did I say? 4.295. But also, for
Pretty
the
high.
Gatherer ratings, it varies like depending on what printing you click on.
Right. Yeah, it
When I always
does.
look at the Gather ratings, I always
Um,
go to the first printing and see what people said about it at that point.
Yeah. So yeah, I
It
don't
is
know
it
what
is
else
pretty
to
high.
say about that.
People did like this card, but like I said, and I like it too, but it just never quite made the cut.
Mhm.
However, if I were playing Mirage Draft,
Yes.
you didn't have Swords to Plowshares available to you in Mirage Draft, right? No.
I don't know, but
You
I'm
didn't
agree.
have
I'll
Spirit
agree.
Link. You didn't have Spirit Link available to you if you're drafting Mirage, so its utility does become a lot more useful in certain formats.
Yeah, I think it's an overall good card for the mana. It's just like, yeah, we have other options. So
Enchanted creature cannot attack or
yeah, I'm trying to think how else you could use that to your advantage compared to like removal or like tapping something or I don't know.
It's really great art too.
Yeah, the art's awesome.
I like this artist, Robert Bliss. He draws a lot of weird looking creatures with like dangly bits in between their legs. There's always something going on weird there. There's always some kind of weird dangly bit. Pacifism, he has foregone the dangly bit. He gave him a flowers. What do I want to say here?
Loincloth, codpiece,
Yes, that's the
flowers.
word I was looking for. Yeah, a loincloth decorated with cute little flowers. So you don't see the dangly bits.
No.
Uh, I'm gonna pull up on Scryfall real quick because people are like, "What are you talking about, Steve, with these dangly bits?" We're gonna look up Robert Bliss. I'm not crazy. If you guys think I'm crazy, I'm just going on about dangly bits and I'm just making things up. Robert Bliss does have a really unique, really interesting style. I do love his art actually.
We were just talking about Polymorph, the blue card with like the
Yeah.
rabbit that's freaking
I
out. That's
just don't I just don't know what's going on with the crotch in a lot of his creatures. So like Blinding Agony, he draws these weird looking creatures, right? I don't even know what they are. They're like bizarre, tortured humanoids.
yeah, they're like wasteland cannibals from Conan or something.
But Cannibalize is very much in the style of pacifism, just like
Uh-huh.
single colored background and just like the stark image of some strange creature. Brutal stuff. Disembowels brutal. But here,
Yeah.
when the crotch is visible of the creatures he draws, there's always these weird dangly bits like this thing. Is it a loincloth? But it's always the same color of the flesh as the creature. So the Akendu Cyclops has some weird dangly bits. This is a
Probably
great
a
looking
loincloth. Maybe it's a
brawl. I
tail.
don't know what this is. We have talked about these dangly bits before too.
Mhm.
Goblin Soothsayer is really also brutal and creepy.
Cool pictures though.
Yeah, really, really great art. This guy has no dangly bits because he's just a skeleton.
No, no,
But
go back, go back. Go back to the skeleton.
does the skeleton have dangly bits?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh, there's something going on here.
There's like an amulet around his pelvis.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah. Okay.
dangling
Yeah.
there.
That's like a chain.
Yeah.
Okay. But so polymorph, not visible here. No dangly bits. Although they did change the art. Like they changed the framing of the art for polymorph
Oh
in
yeah, you
later
like see less
sets.
now.
You see less now, and some people have said that it might be because the Mirage one looked phallic. I never thought this looked phallic, but some people kind of thought it looked like a dick and balls. Like here's
It's really weird.
balls with a dick folded back almost.
I mean,
I don't see it.
more than plenty of other cards.
I don't see it,
Like,
Alex, but you'll
yeah,
notice this part here, what some people think are the balls, not visible in
yeah,
later printings.
yeah.
They've
They've
cropped it.
trimmed it. Yeah.
So I don't know what to say about the dick and balls. I never saw that, but there are dangly bits here on Withering Boon.
It's just that he makes all of his like figures have like these very kind of like bulbous hips and butt. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they
I
have
think it's just
very
really weeble
grotesque
shaped.
proportions, stick legs, thick thighs. This guy, that's definitely a loincloth, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
dangly loincloth.
So I think we can extrapolate from that to the Cyclops above that it's about the same thing.
This does look like a loincloth too.
Yeah.
It's the Cyclops maybe that throws me the most because it's the same color as his flesh. But yes, you're right. If I extrapolate, this could just be shadows. Loincloth. It's possibly a loincloth. These are definitely loincloths. This one's definitely a loincloth.
I like that
Teferi's Curse.
animal in that one. The
What are we
weird
talking about? Which one are we
donkey
talking about?
rabbit on Teferi's curse that he's
Oh,
pointing at.
yeah.
That's pretty cute.
He did the art for Reanimate. Skulking Ghost was really cool early art. Yeah, he hasn't done anything for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Stronghold, maybe, was the last time he worked with Magic. He does have really, really fantastic art. And yes, now after looking at this very closely, it do appear to be loincloths, dangly loincloths. I had to stop and investigate. But that's pacifism. Very cool card, very cool art. I will also say, let me go back to Robert Bliss's art real quick. We're going to look at the pacifism. I mentioned pacifism has been reprinted many, many times. They used his art for multiple reprints, but then they switched to another art variant that we've actually talked about before. There's been a few.
Oh, the boxer shorts guy.
Yeah, this was this guy. This guy who this looks like the cover of a cheap romance novel.
Romance novel. That's what I thought too.
I
But it's
don't
about a
know.
guy who like has dementia and wanders off into the snow.
Yeah. He's like, I've had enough of this shit. He puts down his armor and his sword and just wanders off into the snow to die. I think they should have retained the original art, which I mean,
Way
I
better.
I look at this, I see if you tell me it's pacifism, I'm like, okay, I get it. But initially I just think romance novel.
So many different ways you could go with that idea. I feel I
I
don't hate that
understand.
big fat guy with the little flag. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
fine.
this I know you can argue that what about this says pacifism to you? You know, the original Robert Bliss.
Oh no, I mean he used to be a scary guy and now he's just like standing there and he can't do anything and they're putting flowers on him and
Yes.
the forest
Yes.
creatures are crawling on him and he's just kind of like, you know.
He's a murderous, demented psychopath who's been pacified. And now there's just deer coming up to him. And yes, these creatures are adoring him with flowers. And
Deer's kind of creepy too, by the way.
he's like, I really wanna do something right now, but I can't. His mouth is all twisted because he wants to attack. He wants to slice
I want to grab that deer's creepy
and
long
just
neck.
snap their neck. Yeah. But he can't. I don't think they should have ever gone away with this art from this art. That's what I
Oh,
wanted to
that's cool.
say.
Even the background's cool. I like the like watercolory kind of background with the flower.
It's great. It's great. That's pacifism. The next comments from Mirage I want to talk about are actually a set of creatures. These are the Night Stalkers.
Stalkers.
They're Breath Stealer, Feral Shadow, Urborg, Panther. These are the Night Stalkers of Mirage, not the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez, who terrorized what? That was California in the 70s. Where was the Night Stalker doing his evil deeds?
I don't know. Oh,
The Night Stalkers from Mirage are three creatures. They're all referred to as Summon Night Stalker. They're all two colorless, one black, and they're either 2/2 or 2/1 creatures. There's nothing particularly exciting about these creatures. One, you can pay black and it gets +1/-1 until end of turn. The other has flying. For the third, Urborg Panther, you can pay 1 black, sacrifice the Panther to destroy target creature blocking Urborg Panther. So on their own, they're nothing special. But I wanted to highlight these because they have very unique effects. They have a very unique effect when played together. I don't think that anything like this existed prior to these cards being printed in
not
Magic.
that I remember.
And you don't know what the unique effect is from just reading Breath Stealer because it doesn't mention anything in the text. You don't know what the unique effect is when you read the text of Feral Shadow because it doesn't mention anything in the text. You only learn about the unique effect when you pull Urborg Panther from a pack.
Which I don't think I ever did.
I don't remember. I know I never played with these three.
No. I think maybe I have like Feral Shadows. Maybe I've seen that, but I never got an Urborg Panther.
When you read past Urborg Panther's initial ability, which is 1 black, sacrifice Urborg Panther, destroy target creature blocking Urborg Panther, you see that it says sacrifice Feral Shadow, Breath Stealer, and Urborg Panther. Then search your library for Spirit of the Night and put it into play as though it were just played. Shuffle your library afterwards. So Spirit of a Night was a big beater that was what, like 6/6 flying, protection from something. I think black, even though I always want to say it was protection from white, but that would be too good. Spirit of the Night was a high casting cost creature from Mirage. If this hit the board, you were in trouble. It had a casting cost of 6 colorless, 3 black, so it was going to be very hard to play naturally. It was 6/5, summon legend, flying, trample, protection from black, first strike when attacking, and it was unaffected by summoning sickness. So you could either ramp this out or you could play these 3 little dinky creatures right here and then sacrifice them, and all of a sudden Spirit of the Night hits the board.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very fun thing for like 12, 13-year-olds to do at the time. This would be very exciting if you could ever get it to work. You probably would never get it to work. I never tried it. I would like to hear from somebody who has ever successfully sacrificed a Breath Stealer, a Pharaoh Shadow, and an Urborg Panther to summon a Spirit of the Night to the battlefield. I would like to hear if that has ever happened. I'm sure it's happened sometimes. Somebody out there did it.
Now
Then what
I'm gonna
happened?
try to do it.
Then Spirit of the Night got Sword of the Plowshare.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's just a cool effect, you know. Not the kind of thing that gets me excited these days when I'm like, oh, I'm going to play these 3 creatures, each for 3 mana that aren't that good, and then I'm going to sacrifice 3 creatures to bring 1 creature out that's going to get killed by something else. Not the kind of thing that gets me excited these days. But in my younger days, maybe I would get kind of excited about something like that happening.
Yeah. I mean, they're not awful by themselves. You know what I mean? Like, so you could get
Just
some
nothing
use out of them
special.
on the way.
Yeah.
I like that at 3 casting cost or under, you could bring them back to the battlefield with unearth. So that's kind of nice. If someone gets rid of them, you can just like pop them back out in a graveyard deck.
Kind of tempted to build a deck just
But
around
there's
this and just see if I could
yeah,
ever win a
yeah.
game.
Oh, I mean, I bet it'd be kind of fun and it wouldn't be awful. But there's other ways to cheat out
Yes.
big creatures. I mean, I have a deck with Spirit in the Night in it, and then,
Yeah.
like you can search for creatures and put them directly into your graveyard, reanimate them, like
But not if you're drafting Mirage. This is probably
correct.
the only way you get to play Spirit of the Night if you're drafting Mirage. Although in
Then you have to get
Mirage, you
all
do have
3 of
Dark
these and a
Ritual.
Spirit of the Night, though. It's gonna be
Huh?
tough. You have to pull all 3 of these and a Spirit of the Night
Oh,
while
yeah,
you're
that's
drafting
true.
them. That's going to be tough.
So that's never going to happen either. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not going to happen. Okay. I just wanted to highlight those because it's an interesting effect. It's an
Yeah, I think it is.
interesting event. I
Mhm.
don't know. There was nothing like this before. Next commons, and these are the end of the commons that I want to highlight from Mirage. The next ones I wanted to talk about are, again, a set of cards. They are the flanking knights along with flanking centaur. So this is where we start to see flanking actually appear in the set. And like I said earlier in the introduction part, everything with flanking is a knight on horseback or a centaur, which is half human, half horse. Very weird.
Half a knight on half a horseback.
What'd you say? Half a knight on
Half a
horseback,
knight on half a horseback.
half a horseback, yeah.
2/3 of a horseback.
It is more. It's not half human, half. It is. Yeah, it's half human, but it's more than
Half
half
human,
horse.
2/3 horse.
Yeah. These are mostly unprinted since Mirage. Can't remember everywhere they've been printed, but you
Okay.
mostly won't see them anywhere else other than Mirage. There were 1 or 2 that I think have been reprinted a little bit, but the flanking knights are Burning Shield Ascari and Searing Spear Ascari in red. These are both 2 colorless, 1 red, 2 2s. They both have flanking. Each one of these cards has another special ability and an activated ability in addition to the flanking. So the Burning Shield Ascari, you can pay 2 red to give it first strike. The Searing Spear, you can pay 1 colorless, 1 red. And then the Searing Spear Ascari cannot be blocked by only 1 creature this turn. Not that great.
Yeah.
In black, you have Cadaverous Knight. Again, 2 colorless, 1 black, 2/2 flanker. You can regenerate it for 1 colorless, 2 black. Not that great.
Like why are you gonna make me pay 3 to regenerate my knight? Come on.
That's what I was thinking too. It's the regeneration for black creatures, like standard black creatures with regenerate. They were already creatures that I never really played because they typically required 1 colorless and 1 black to regenerate them, like the old dredge skeletons.
Yeah,
and
that's too
often
much.
didn't want to put that much mana into regenerating
One black, it's okay.
yeah.
You know.
In green, regeneration I feel like was often one green,
Yeah.
at least sometimes. In black, it seems to always be a little
There was
bit
sometimes
more.
one black, like Will-o'-the-Wisp.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, and that's the one we played. That's the regenerator we would play.
But yeah, just a little too much. Like, I don't think
That's
this
too
would have been
much.
overpowered if it was just one black to regenerate it.
It
I think it would have
definitely
been
would have.
like
Yeah.
still less good than Joriel Centaur. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. So Cadaverous Knight, just 3 to regenerate a 2/2. No, thank you. And then in white, you have 3 Zalfurin Commander, Ephemeref Knight, and Zalfurin Knight. So Ephemeref Knight, I'll start with that. 2 colorless, 1 white, 2/2 flanker. Pay 1 white. Attacking does not cause Ephemeref Knight to tap this turn, so it has vigilance. That's decent. I'm
yeah,
digging that one.
it'd be better if you didn't have to pay the white. Like I don't like having to pay for my vigilance. I just want it
I
on me.
know, but that's the deal with these guys. They have flanking as a base ability, and then they each have an activated ability. Zalfurin Commander, 2 colorless, 1 white, 2/2 flanker. Pay 1 colorless, 2 white. Target knight gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I'm not doing that.
A lot of
Too much
mana.
mana. Zalfurin Knight, 2 colorless, 1 white, 2/2 flanker. Pay 2 white for strike until end of turn.
Yeah. The 2 first strike ones are my second favorites.
Decent. Yeah, I agree. And now here's the one that I actually played back in the day, and I
Yeah.
think more people played back in the day. Jor-El Centaur. 1 colorless, 2 green, 2/2 flanking. Jor-El Centaur cannot be the target of spells or effects.
Brutal.
There
We
we go.
we played the heck out of this back in the day. When
Well, I
it came
definitely
out,
played this card.
we were all throwing this into decks.
I don't even know what deck I played this in because this was back in the time where I mostly just played my one deck. Sarah Angels, my red, white, blue deck. Sarah Angels over a moat,
Didn't you ever have like 2
counter
decks at
spells,
once? Like you didn't have a second?
fireballs.
Because I feel like that's how I was always. I always had like a secondary deck that wasn't as good as my first deck,
I
and then like
definitely
a third
did,
deck.
but I just don't remember them much.
Yeah,
Like I had
I
the
feel like we.
primary deck, and then I had things that I messed around with, and I don't really remember what they ever were, except for like the ape deck that I tried to build a lot that I never
I
actually played against any of you guys because I
no,
just
I
messed
remember
around
you
with them.
playing green. I feel like you played red green because didn't you play Curd Ape sometimes?
I did, but I
Yeah.
don't
So
remember what the decks were.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But I feel like you definitely played green and Jor-El Centaur. You played with Urnam Jin a fair amount, I remember.
I definitely did when those came out. Yeah, when they were reprinted. I just don't remember the decks.
Yeah.
I think I might have messed around with Armageddon from time to time because I have Armageddon still that I had from back in the day, and I already had Sarah Angel, so I think I would just do like
Yeah, I
green,
think you
white,
played white green. That sounds right.
green, white, Sarahs and Urnums and Geddons and Swords and Disenchants, just because those were good cards.
But yeah, when this came out, everyone was immediately like, "Oh, this is great." There weren't almost any creatures that had Shroud or the equivalent of Shroud back then.
No,
Uh,
and
there weren't
nothing
even
for
many
3
cards
mana,
to give it to other creatures. You had a few options.
and nothing like this that you could fairly consistently ramp out on turn 2.
Yeah, it's super fair casting cost.
Yeah,
Like for a 2/2 that's effectively a 3/3 when it's attacking.
yeah,
Uh, and it can't be targeted. Like very good.
it was good. The only thing that's not good about that is you can't giant growth it, but oh well,
True, yeah, but yeah. Oh well.
you can't have
It's
everything.
such a problem for other people to deal with.
Yeah, it's very good.
And I just don't understand why it's so much better than all the other ones
It is weird. Yeah,
in
I
this.
don't know. I don't know. They just did flankers and they wanted to make the knights unplayable or barely playable, and they wanted people to run with the centaur. I don't know. I don't know. But those are the common flankers. Now we're moving on to the uncommons. Those are the only commons that I really wanted to highlight from Mirage. Tell us if you have any, commons that you love to play from back in the day in Mirage. Commons that aren't Dark Ritual
Or memory lapse.
or Memory Lapse. We know those are good. Now on to the uncommons. I want to start again with a group of cards. We're going from one group of cards to the next group of cards. The first uncommons I wanted to mention from Mirage are the tutors. We had 3 new tutors introduced to the game in Mirage: Enlightened Tutor, Mystical Tutor, and Worldly Tutor. They're each 1 mana. Enlightened 1 white, Mystical 1 blue, Worldly 1 green. They're all instants, and they allow you to search your library for an artifact or enchantment, in the case of Enlightened Tutor, an instant interrupt mana source or sorcery card, in the case of Mystical Tutor, and a creature card, in the case of Worldly Tutor. In all cases, you don't put the card directly into your hand. Instead, you shuffle your library after you tutor for it, and then you put the reveal, and then you show it to your opponent, and then you put the revealed card back on top of your library. So you draw it next turn, but it is an instant, so you can do it at the end of your opponent's turn and then draw it. Enlightened and Mystical Tutor were frequent banned restricted targets over the years. I was looking at the banned restricted timeline. These were always getting banned and restricted, especially Mystical Tutor, most heavily banned and restricted. Actually currently banned in premodern, which is why you never see it. And this is actually the one that I never found myself playing with ever. Even though it's the most powerful. I mean, being able to look for an instant interrupt mana source or sorcery card allowed you to do all sorts of broken combo related things. I just tend not to be a broken combo related player. I tend to be a more boring mid-range Magic the Gathering player. So I always went for Worldly or Enlightened Tutor.
Yeah, I much
Mostly
prefer
Enlightened
to
Tutor.
pull out like a banger enchantment or a big fatty creature or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Than like the appropriate counter spell that I want, or maybe some sorcery that's part of a combo.
Or a mana source. I'm not sure exactly what has gotten Mystical Tutor like most frequently banned,
Right, yeah, I don't know.
but I'm guessing it was like storm stuff or things that would allow you to generate like a huge amount of mana and then combo off in some crazy way.
I'm just instantly thinking of maybe being able to go for like your stifle or something, or some blue card like that that's a combo piece.
Yeah, it would allow you to much more quickly assemble a lot of different combos. Although Enlightened Tutor does the same, does similar things. But
Yeah, right.
as I recall, Mystical Tutor was banned because of its application in Reanimator decks. So they were a lot of Mystical Tutor was. This is from a Cool Stuff Inc. article called "Examining the Legacy Banned List." Mystical Tutor was banned mostly for its application with Reanimator, but the fact that it splashed over to every other combo deck certainly factored into the decision on the card. I can imagine, the ability to get any instant interrupt mana source or sorcery card enabled a heck of a lot of combos, more combos
Mhm.
than Enlightened Tutor.
I mean,
Definitely
people
more
are probably
combos than
still
Worldly
playing
Tutor.
with channel widely at this point, you know?
Yeah. Although I just thought of a I just thought of a combo deck that I'm going to build around Worldly Tutor potentially.
No,
What do you mean no?
don't do it.
It's going to be the world's dumbest combo deck. It's going to be Worldly Tutor and the Night Stalkers. This is going to help.
Oh, okay.
This is going to help me assemble my Night Stalker trio to bring my Spirit of the Night
There you go.
to the battlefield more consistently, potentially. I think I'm going to do that. We'll see. We'll see if I can win a game. But yeah. So Reanimator decks were the main offender, it looks like, according to this Cool Stuff
Okay.
Inc. article. And then what is Mystical Tutor currently banned in? Premodern, which we won't see here on Scryfall. Get with it, Scryfall. I want to
Yeah.
see the premodern banned list
Yeah.
here on Scryfall.
On Scryfall.
Banned in Legacy, restricted in Vintage, legal in
Okay.
Commander, legal in Oathbreaker, singleton formats. I can see there's a greater allowance for tutors and stuff and
Yeah.
singleton formats. Does MTG stocks list legalities in premodern?
I think so. If you go to card,
I think it does too. I think
it might also not mention premodern though.
no, that's what I'm wondering. I know it lists legalities.
I don't think it mentions premodern, but go ahead and look.
Come on.
By the way, while you're looking, I thought another common to mention, and that's Choking Sands. That's a pretty good one, right?
It is pretty good. I initially had it on the list and I decided to remove it, but it is good. It's a land destruction card, one colorless, two black. Destroy any land? Is it destroy
A
target land?
non-swamp land.
Non-swamp land, and then it does 1 or 2 damage to your opponent, right?
2 damage if it's a non-basic. If you destroy a non-basic
Okay.
one, then it does 2 damage to them too. Yeah. But I think most people kind of have seen that and know about it, so it's, not a big deal to skip either.
But it is a solid card.
Yeah.
Here's the Mystical Tutor banned restricted list. On MTG stocks also does not mention premodern. Everybody needs to put premodern on these lists.
Get with the program. Websites.
It's the fastest growing format in Magic the Gathering. Did you know that,
Yeah.
Alex?
I did know that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that. I'm just saying it, but it may or may not, it might be true. Might be true. Those are the tutors.
Fastest growing other than Don Don.
Yes. Yes. They are definitely some of my favorite cards from Mirage. These were awesome. I mean, these immediately got played, of course. Killer tutors, new tutors. It wasn't just demonic tutor any longer, and this was pre-vampiric tutor. So these were the shit. Yes, there's card disadvantage because you're playing one card to find one card, and that card goes on top of your library, and you're drawing it next turn. So you're not getting a new card to draw next turn, but you are getting to draw the exact card that you wanted to draw next turn.
Yeah. Card
Downside,
disadvantage, but maybe speeds up finding what you need by 3 or 4 turns.
yeah, sometimes the disadvantage is worth it if you're getting exactly what you want when you want it.
Yeah. What always surprised me about these, though, was that they only did the 3 colors in Mirage.
Yeah.
Skipping black, I could see because you had Demonic Tutor in play back then. People were just running Demonic Tutors all over the place. So I could see, if they had done the other 4 colors, but I don't know why they left red out.
Red
It doesn't fit in with red's, red mages aren't forward thinking enough to tutor things. They just blast.
Yeah, I think there's something about the color pie that they don't like red having this ability. I think maybe it's too ordered and not chaotic enough for red. So they're like,
Or to see that if they had done it with just 2 or 3 of the colors, but now it's in all 4 colors. So then now you're just leaving red out. Come on.
They're leaving red out. Now red did get Gamble in Urza's Saga. That's the one colorless. Sorry, one red. Sorcery. So not an instant. Rare from Urza's Saga. Search your library for a card. Put that, so any type of card. You're not limited to certain types, card types, any card. Put that card into your hand, then discard a card at random. Shuffle your library afterwards. So
you might chaos.
Yeah.
So and that fits. It fits totally with red. They should have done that in Mirage.
That is true. They could have done it in Mirage. There were probably discussions like this happening at Wizards afterwards, saying we should have done something like this in Mirage. Just make it chaotic. If you say you want more chaos in red, so they shouldn't be able to tutor, it shouldn't be that orderly. Just make a chaotic tutor, and they did that later. Gamble has a very chaotic price chart too. Up to $30, down to $10, up to $30, down to $10.
Interesting.
Anyways. Gamble is not reserve list. Reprinted recently in Dominaria Remastered. Those are the tutors. The next uncommons I want to talk about in Mirage. Well, this is just one card. Withering Boon. We just saw Withering Boon when I was going through Robert Bliss's art catalog, talking about the dangly bits, which we've now confirmed are in fact loincloths, which I think we probably confirmed that on an earlier episode of the podcast too, and I forgot. But every time we bring up one of these Robert Bliss cards, I start talking about the dangly bits, and then I go through the art. We'll do this again in another 40 episodes from now.
Yeah, tune in.
Episode 130, come back to hear Steve talk about the dangly bits and the Robert Bliss art. Withering Boon is going to come up here pretty soon, eventually. It's one colorless, one black. It is I almost said interrupt. It is an interrupt, now instant. Pay 3 life, counter target summon spell. First and only printing is in Mirage. I don't know why I brought up a mountain. So it's been printed once and only once in Mirage. It has a rating of 3.514 on Gatherer.
And we talked about this before because there was some, I mean, it does have some value, but there was some price action around it, considering that this is like a never reprinted card.
Yeah.
And like the only card really that can do what it does.
There we go. Finally came up here for us. I still believe it has never been reprinted. I don't think it's been spoiled in any recent sets. It did go up in price quite a bit starting in 2020. It used to be $1 for a very long time. And since then it's been like $5 to $8 over the last 4 years. I don't know that this gets played outside of mono black EDH, but it seems particularly good in mono black and also particularly in a singleton format. You know, you're not going to have the option to pay like 4 of the best removal spell in black in a singleton format. So kind of want to go with the best removal spell, the second best removal spell, maybe the third best removal spell. Maybe after that, you might want to just be able to counter a summon spell. This is surprisingly expensive to me. That was my other comment.
Yeah.
It's currently $8.36.
I mean, this was a card that when I, pulled from a pack back then, I was like, this stinks.
Yeah, we're just like,
Stuck it in the box, and then it stayed in my box forever.
Okay.
But now I can appreciate it a little more, I think. I can see more use for it, especially seeing what other cards see play now and what some of the decks are that are popular. Different formats, like you said, with singleton rules and things. I can see it having some more value than I used to.
I'm still surprised it's $8.36 though.
Yeah.
How many people want that many copies of Withering Boon? I don't.
I think people have been speculating on this.
I do too.
Because it hasn't been reprinted, and they think the effect is outside of the color pie enough that it won't be reprinted.
Yeah. It's just
which I can see. I totally am with that logic, but at the same time, like the types of cards they want or need for a given set vary over time, and I could see this easily working its way back into a release if they just decide that that's what helps make the overall set balanced.
Yeah. I guess here's my thought. Yes, it's outside of the color pie because it's counter ability. You're countering the target summon spell.
But it's with the black color pie with the life sacrificing to get that,
Yes.
Yeah.
But certainly creature removal is not outside of the color pie. So you have
creature targeted. So I do think it's very I did say that about the color pie, but I do think it's very much fitting with black.
You have a ton of ways to get rid of. Even regardless of the color pie issue, I'm just thinking from a gameplay perspective. You have a ton of ways if you're playing black to get rid of creatures. So yes, you can't counter them being summoned, but you can easily deal with them. Many cards to do this in black, even in a singleton format.
Right.
So you have
a lot of them do it without dealing damage, so it doesn't even matter if it's a giant creature. Like you can just still terror it or dark banishing it or whatever.
My thought is if it's some sort of creature with enter battlefield ability. You have no other
black.
Or protection from black. So in those cases, yes, you would prefer the counter as opposed to removal. Maybe there's other things too that we're not thinking about, but it still seems niche enough that I don't understand why it's at $8.36. But yes, it has to be speculation to go up this high this quickly.
Yeah, I don't think so. It doesn't bother me when things like step outside of their color pie rule if they do it like this card in a way that still like tethers them to that role, like black can get an effect outside of its normal effects, but it does so by paying life and by restricting it to just summon creatures. You know what I mean?
Yeah, similar to a gamble, which we just talked about. It allows red to tutor, but it's a particular chaotic tutor. You could lose the card that you just tutored for.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Withering Boon. It's a pretty cool card. I
Yeah, it's
almost,
good.
here's what happens. I look at these cards, I'm like, I don't want it. I'm not going to play it. Now all of a sudden it's $8, and I'm like, I need a copy. I don't find
Well, good one to, keep your eye out for in like, bins, 50-cent
Yes,
bins at a card shop or something that maybe haven't been moved into the more
which
expensive section yet or something.
somehow I can't seem to find them any longer anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, every
Got to put
place
the
I go,
card behind the glass.
you bring them a card, and everything gets looked up on the internet. So
Yeah.
next uncommons from Mirage, another set. These are the diamonds. These are a set of middling mana rocks, is how I referred to them. Middling mana rocks. They're all pretty cool. They're two colorless artifacts. They all come into play tapped. There's one for each color. You could tap it to add a black, a red, a white, a green, or a blue to your mana pool. Middling mana rocks.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I find myself often considering but never playing these, especially the
Yeah, I
blue
start
and
to
the
put them in
white.
decks a lot, then I just like take them out.
And they come out. Really just the blue and the white. Uh,
Would they, if they didn't come into play tapped, would they be like astronomically better?
no, they'd just be a little bit better.
I think they'd see a lot of play then though, right? In pre-modern, maybe I'm wrong, but I think they'd be at the very least they'd allow you to mana fix pretty quickly. Like they come into play untapped, and then you can get that mana right away. So on turn 3, when you have 3 mana, you now can put one of these down and cast, a spell of 2 different colored mana.
Yeah. Yeah, they might see more play.
And in slower decks that are trying to, like build up some mana resources by casting, mana rocks early on. Uh, I don't know. I guess I just want them to be good. I want
Yeah.
there to be a 2 casting cost mana rock with no downside.
Yeah. They wouldn't be too good. They would just be better.
Just be
And
pretty good. Okay.
yeah. Uh I like I said, I end up playing around with the marble diamond and the sky diamond a lot. Usually when I'm messing around with building like high casting cost white and blue decks.
Yeah, I
I
start to
find
look at them when I'm maybe doing a blue deck, like a mixed color deck that has blue in it, and I want to have a way to make sure I can cast counter spells at some point, start laying down the mana rocks to get it done earlier on.
but I never end up putting them in. I put them in because I want ramp sometimes. I don't know why I find myself messing around with high casting cost white decks, high casting cost blue decks, like big blue flyer decks or big angel decks. I'm drawn to these things, and I'm always like, I just want to ramp out big dumb flyers. They're never really very good, but you know, that's what I want to do for some reason. I don't know why my heart wants that, but that is what my heart wants. But even in those decks, they're not that good because it's just too slow. I might put them in some control decks that I want to ramp big, into big stuff in
Mhm.
one day, but I might not do that.
Like I feel like the
Might do it,
the
might not.
medallions are usually better.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what happens.
you
That's what
know,
happens. I end up putting the medallions in instead. And
these sorry, go ahead.
the reason I'm not playing any of these decks, these big dumb decks I mess around with in paper yet, is because the medallions are too damn expensive. And so I don't want to buy those for some stupid deck that's not even that good. But yes, the medallions, uh, in Mirage Draft, these are good. But if you're
Sure.
just playing like pre-modern format, middle school or something, like I just go with the diamonds over. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the medallions over the diamonds.
The only place I see this as being maybe having an edge over the medallions is if you have a lot of cards that have like multiple like mana of that color versus more colorless mana in the casting cost. Like if you have cards that are like green, green, green 2 or
Yeah,
something, and then the medallion helps you less, and this actually gives you a mana of the color. But they're so slow with the come into play tapped
they're
thing,
so
and I
slow.
don't know.
That's the problem.
Yeah, there's just other stuff to put in your deck.
I mean, especially like back in these days too, you start pulling things from a pack, you see an artifact that you can tap for a mana of some color. It's a whole cycle. Your mind automatically compares them to the Moxes. And you're like,
Uh-huh.
what is this bullshit? And then you're just mad that you can't get Moxes.
Just mad.
Yeah. They're decent.
Yeah.
The art on Sky Diamond is really cool too. I always like the art on Sky Diamond. But that's the diamonds. There's not a whole lot to say about them. They're middling mana rocks. That's how I started it. That's how I'm going to finish. Middling mana rocks. The next cards, uncommons specifically in Mirage that I want to talk about. The original fetch lands. This is another group. We mentioned these, maybe even just last episode. We were talking about them because I saw them in a deck 1 or 2 episodes ago. Bad River, Floodplain, Grasslands, Mountain Valley, and a Rocky Tar Pit. They're allied colored fetch lands. These were the first fetch lands ever printed. They came out before the fetch lands that everybody plays nowadays, that are better than the original Mirage set. The original Mirage set came into play tapped. So they all came into play tapped. Then you could tap and sacrifice them to search your library for an island or a swamp card, put that land into play, shuffle your library afterwards, or an island in a plains card, or a forest in a plains. You get the idea, all the allied colors. I didn't pay attention to any lands that come into play tapped when I was playing back in the day. So these
dual lands were still legal in like anything, we were playing with dual lands.
They weren't on my radar at all. We have now seen, looking back at tournament decks from those days, at least in some formats at those times, they were in some big tournament decks, even in extended when they did have dual lands available to them.
Like people saw the potential for searching, tutoring for a land. So that's cool.
And I do see that was helpful, but you do see back in those days too. It's not like today in premodern where you'll see, 4 of.
Yeah.
One or multiple, depending on how many colors you're running. Because, the fetch lands are so good. The ones that don't come into play tapped. You don't see these in 4 of. Even back in the day, you would see maybe like 1 or 2 to help them mana fix, to help smooth out their curve, to help them play things when they wanted to play.
I wish these had been a little better just because, if for no other reason, because the art is cool, and I think we always ignored it because we ignored the cards and we never really, but it's pretty handsome looking set of lands, I think.
Yeah, they're adorable. Therese Nielsen. No, she's not all of them. A lot of great artists from back in the day. Therese Nielsen, Bad River, Pat Morrissey, Floodplain. I'm not as familiar with his stuff. John Avon, who's the king of the lands, did the Grassland. Kerry Johnson, Mountain Valley, and Jeff Maricola, Rocky Tar Pit. I recognize at least 3 of these names from a ton of different cards. Anyways, the next uncommon I want to talk about, this is going to be very brief because we just talked about this card in our episode on 3 Deuce. This was the very last episode. It's Dwarven Miner. Dwarven Miner is 1 colorless, 1 red, 1/2 summon dwarf. Pay 2 colorless, 1 red, tap it to destroy target non-basic land. It's first printing in Mirage. It was also in the list. This isn't something that's been printed much. It is a rating of 4.082 on Gatherer. It is a cornerstone of 3 Deuce. I kept saying that last episode. You did not like that, Alex. You kept saying, why are you talking about Dwarven Miner? I kept saying it's because when you rank or a Dwarven Miner, it becomes 3/2. That's where the name of the deck came from. That is true.
I cannot believe that.
It's been confirmed to me by people on the internet, on Twitter. They said, you were right, Steve. And then I was like, why would you rancor a Dwarven Miner? I asked that question, and they said, oh, maybe that's what you have to rancor at the time. And I was like, that's a good point.
Hey, all right.
That's a good point. I think I underestimated this card. Repeated land destruction is not a common thing. Maybe I should appreciate it more when it's available.
I underestimated it too.
Yeah.
When I look at it now and I think about the other things that sometimes people play so that you can dump the mana into them if you have it maybe later, this would certainly be a viable option for that. And if you're just trying to go hard land destruction early, it would work for that too.
Yeah. And yes, he's fragile, but he can still block 1/1s, and he only costs 2 mana. And if he eats removal in your 3 Deuce deck, that's 1 less piece of removal they have for the higher powered creatures in your horde.
And you get the Rancor back.
and you get the Rancor back. So
Why did you put lipstick on him?
I just thought it was funny. I don't know.
Okay. Is it because he's in like a sexy pose?
Because he's in a sexy pose and he had these big juicy lips, and I just wanted to see what he'd look like with lipstick on, and I liked it. So I kept it.
And I
That's
liked.
that's the answer. This is definitely supposed to be sexy, and it got me going. I mean, this is purposely provocative. It's painted by a guy named Jock. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing when he painted this Dwarven Miner. That's Dwarven Miner. Solid uncommon from Mirage. I think this guy did a ton of work that we weren't aware of when people were, drafting Mirage block,
What it
playing
seems like, yeah.
competitive decks in Mirage block. We weren't paying any attention to him. A couple other commons I want to talk about are some cards that deal damage equal to the power of an opponent's creature. I'm not going to LobsterCon. The time and the money to travel there, I'm not going. Also, if I did go, I'd probably come in last place because I barely know how to play Magic. But I am hoping some people will bring cards like this to LobsterCon potentially, and maybe they can wreak havoc against people who play Terravore decks and Phyrexian Dreadnought decks. Any deck that's designed to kill you with a giant creature, maybe consider playing some of these cards against those decks. Maybe sideboard them. I don't know. I also don't know what I'm talking about, but I would really love to use these cards against a Dreadnought. One of them is Delirium from Mirage. We've talked about both these cards before on the show. Briefly here and there, they've come up. I think I have a slight obsession. These are several cards that I never play with, but I'm still obsessed with. I don't play with them because I rarely find myself playing red-black. But the first one is Delirium. It's an instant. It's 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. Play only on target opponent's turn. Tap target creature that player controls. That creature deals to the player an amount of damage equal to its power. The creature neither deals nor receives combat damage this turn.
Yeah, cool card and very, very much like Backlash.
Yeah. It's a cheap card, 72 cents. You're playing against a Dreadnought opponent. You guys are doing battle about the Dreadnought hitting the board. They waste all their counter spells, trying to ensure that their Dreadnought hits the board, and then you hit them with Delirium, and then they eat 12 damage from their Dreadnought. I don't know, maybe it'll work. The other one's Caravex Purge.
Now this I played back then when it came out. I was playing Black-Red for a while, and I really liked this. I think it was probably a little bit more underwhelming than I expected it to be, but I still just like it. It's cool.
Caravex Purge. 1 black, 1 red, X. Sorcery. Richard Kane Ferguson art. I have to mention that. Destroy target creature with casting cost equal to X. So this one destroys the creature. If that creature is put into the graveyard in this way, Caravex Purge deals to the creature's controller an amount of damage equal to the creature's power. So, I mentioned both of these together because they're similar. They're similar.
Mhm.
I do hope that I see some of these, or more likely Backlash in a sideboard at LobsterCon or something, though. But again, I'm not a good Magic player. So nobody plays these, maybe for a reason. But if your field is full of like decks that are routinely killing you with 12-12 Dreadnoughts, 14-14 Terravores, maybe these cards become a little bit better all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'd try it.
Maybe they're worth running.
I like Caravex. To me, Caravex Purge was like I was always running Drain Life, and this is similar to like a reverse effect Drain Life. Instead of stealing the life, you're now doing it to the opposing player while you destroy the creature.
We may or may not know one person going to LobsterCon. That person may or may not be playing a deck that should have access to red and black mana. I may or may not spend the next several months trying to convince him to at least put one in his sideboard just for fun. I won't try to convince you to main deck it or anything, but I'll be like, listen, just take one space, just put it in the sideboard, one spot in the sideboard. Maybe you'll never put it in your deck. Maybe you'll never board it in. But maybe you will, and maybe it wins you some games. Who knows? Next uncommon is a new counterspell that was printed in Mirage. It is Dissipate. I liked this counterspell. I remember actually playing this counterspell when it first came out, and I think it's just gotten better since then. It's 1 colorless, 2 blue, interrupt, counter target spell, remove that spell card from the game. First printing in Mirage, reprinted in Innistrad, M15, a couple other special printings.
I
Rated at
never played this.
4.146 on Gatherer. What were you going to say, Alex?
Oh, I just said I never played with this.
I did. Don't remember why.
Hmm.
Maybe just some cases before I had my mana drains and I wanted more than 4 counterspells. I just try to dissipate. I don't know that I was using it for anything. I don't know that I was using it for its remove the spell effect at the time. But that
I bet
is,
you were, because there were other counterspell options, if you didn't like beyond the 4 counterspells, like there were
there
other things.
were, but I'm just trying to think of what my friends would
I'm
have been playing in their decks at the time that I would have
I-
wanted to remove from the game specifically.
I'm thinking about like how often people were playing regrowth back then,
Yeah, okay, there's
like
that.
everyone had a regrowth almost.
We did play regrowth a lot. I just feel like
So
it's gotten even better. It got even better like after Guy's Blessing was printed,
Mhm.
and it got better after flashback. You could dissipate a flashback card, all of a sudden they can't flash it back. I'm assuming you can't
Yeah.
flashback from exile. Flashback is from the graveyard,
And
so you
there's just
can't.
more graveyard effects nowadays.
There's more, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's better.
Yeah, like none of you guys were running reanimator decks consistently or anything that I needed to
No.
dissipate. So maybe I was just trying it out. Try it out.
Mhm.
There's a running argument in the Gatherer comments about whether or not this is a strictly better cancel. Someone was even calling people retarded in the Gatherer comments, which really gave me like an old message. It brought me back to the old message board days when
Felt like
people
you're
were
in the
just calling.
90s again.
Yeah. So this was an old comment. It was probably like 10 years ago.
Cancel. Okay.
Yeah, cancel.
Blue 1 counter target spell.
Yeah. That's cancel?
Yeah.
Why would
I mean, so I think this is a matter of semantics at this
it
point.
is, yeah, it
It
is.
is 99.9% strictly better. It is strictly better and that I know that's what strictly means, like, or doesn't, that's not what strictly means. But like in almost any case, it would be strictly better, I think.
You can insert yourself into this argument, Alex, and maybe somebody will call you the R word. What I was going to say is
I hope so.
I'm not going to get involved in the argument. I'm just going to say that this is good for you when you really need to get rid of a Rancor too. Dissipate Rancor.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That'd be great for getting rancors. Um, yeah, I mean, I can sort of see maybe what they're saying is all like that there is some really marginal scenario where you don't want to remove the card you just canceled from the countered from the game.
Yeah.
If you're playing blue black with reanimation,
Yeah.
maybe you want that card to go to their graveyard so you could bring it
Yes.
back. So that's actually a fairly like decent sized scenario.
Alex is making a strong case here.
Okay.
I'm also now going to go back on what I said, and I'm going to say I don't think this is really good when you need to get rid of a Rancor, because Rancor just comes back to your hand if it went to the graveyard from play, right?
Yeah.
So you could just counterspell a Rancor. Scratch everything I just said.
Uh,
When
okay.
Rancor is put into a graveyard from play, return Rancor to owner's hand.
Yeah, okay.
So it's an
Good point.
inferior way of countering Rancor because it costs more mana.
Okay.
Scratch everything I just said, but don't
Scratch.
scratch what Alex said. He was making a solid case there. And 2 more now. These are the last 2 uncommons from Mirage that I wanted to highlight. I'm going to talk about these together because there are a couple stalwart creatures that don't see a whole lot of play today, but they definitely had their place in some great decks from the Mirage era, and I still really like them both. I love one of them, actually. The first one is Sukata Firewalker, which we've talked about before. I
Very
think
good.
it was in the original. Was it in the original Xerox deck when we first started learning about Xerox decks? Why am I getting? What happened to
Could be. It was
MTG stuff?
definitely in a deck that we talked about. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah. I think you might be right about that.
Sukata Firewalker. Only printed in Mirage. That's it. It's not reserve list, but they've never reprinted it.
Huh. I wonder if they've reprinted something that's exactly the same with a different name, just so that it's not like, on the same plane of existence.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's one blue, no, sorry, one colorless, two blue, 0/1. Summon wizard. Sukata Firewalker cannot be the target of red spells or effects. You could tap it to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So, two blue. It's very similar to a Prodigal Sorcerer.
Yeah.
It's 0/1. And it's not two colorless, one blue. It's one colorless, two blue. But it can't be the target of red spells or effects, which makes it
Just big upside.
a lot better because it can't be lightning bolted.
And even the mana, even the casting cost difference, I would argue is mostly irrelevant because if you're playing Prodigal Sorcerer in the first place, it's probably because you're playing
Mono
blue without the capacity to deal direct damage, and that's why you want it. So you're probably playing mono blue or heavy blue already.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that is true. So Firewalker, I just think he's a really strong card. And the reason I'm highlighting these two creatures together too is not just because I think they're both like really solid uncommons from Mirage, but because they both have protection from the two colors one of the two colors that you most want your creatures to have protection from. So Sukata Firewalker has pro red. The other one, this is one of my favorite cards from Mirage, and I don't
We
see
just
it
talked
play.
about this a little while ago
Maybe I can't remember.
because I feel like I just sort of rediscovered this and realized that I had underestimated it. Because I feel like I was saying that on the show. Maybe it was a different card, but I think I was just talking with you about how I never noticed this before and I like it now and I want to try to play with it.
I think we did talk about it. I can't remember why it came up. Might have been in one of the decks we were looking at.
Maybe it was
I,
off air.
I never see it played in pre-modern. I know there's a lot more creatures available to you in the pre-modern format than were available, just here in Mirage block. But I really, really like I kind of want to sideboard it in the Lightning Angel deck for anytime I'm playing an opponent that's running 4 Swords to Plowshares.
Mhm.
I just want to maybe board out one creature and then put in the Emissary instead. Because, well, the card is Wildfire Emissary. I don't think I said that. It's 3 colorless, 1 red, 2/4, protection from white, summon a Freet. 1 colorless, 1 red, gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So it has a form of fire breathing. It's 2/4. It's a decent body, and it's pro right. It has protection from Swords to Plowshares.
And it survives it survives a Swords to Plowshares and a Lightning Bolt.
And a lightning bolt. Yes, that's true. It can be bolted, but it's not going to die from the bolt.
Yeah, not much survives both of those spells.
Yeah. It's a really strong creature. Doesn't see much play nowadays. Did see quite a bit of play back in the day. And I like it a lot. But that's all
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna
got
try this.
for the Mirage commons, uncommons. I don't know if you have anything else to say
Like you
about
said, if
Wildfire
nothing else, it's a
Emissary.
pretty good sideboard creature. Against white, it's going to become unblockable too,
That's what I'm thinking.
and then
I
you can
want to
fire breathe it
sideboard
to
it.
finish them off.
I don't know if it gets a spot in the main deck, but I want to sideboard it.
And cool art.
And core. Also, Richard Kane Ferguson.
By
I
the way,
just
oh, are you going to say the same thing I'm about to say?
Well, no, I was going to say, I just said earlier when I discussed Karavek's Purge, I was like, Richard Kane Ferguson art. I always got to mention that. And I didn't mention that when I brought up Wildfire Emissary. So I'm glad that you mentioned it. Also, I didn't mention it when I brought up Dissipate, which is also Richard Kane Ferguson art. Are you going to say something about Kickstarter for Richard Kane Ferguson?
No, I don't know about that, but I did see that I'm pretty sure he just did a question and answer
Uh-huh.
online, I think on Reddit. And I don't know if you could find that easily, but yeah, he was answering questions from people. That was like last week, I think.
Okay. Maybe I'll go through that. Maybe we'll look at it next episode if anything cool came up. I'm not sure if he has a Kickstarter. For some reason, that was just in my head. Yeah, Richard Kane Ferguson's playmat collection, Kickstarter. I just saw this 5 days ago. And I think it was just funded. So I think he's going to come out with a lot of cool playmats, Enlightened Tutor playmats, maybe a deck on Arcane Denial, Black Blade Reforged, deck on Black Blade, a deck on Secret Lair, Enlightened Tutor, Force of Will, Hazazon Tamar. That's an exciting one. Misinformation from Ice Age, which is a black card that people
These
don't
are all
play
going to be
very often.
playmats?
Huh?
These are all going to be playmats?
Yeah, Mystical Tutor.
That's
Oh, Nebuchadnezzar playmat's coming.
Oh,
Pillage playmat's
Nebuchadnezzar and
coming.
Hazazon would both be cool playmats.
Sulcanar's coming.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, maybe we should talk. We'll talk about that later. Maybe. I'll look through his Reddit Q&A. Maybe something interesting came up. But that's all I got for the Mirage commons uncommons that I wanted to highlight. Those are the cards that I most enjoy in Mirage in the common and uncommon slots, the ones that I played with back in the day, the ones that I want to play with now. I don't know if you have anything, Alex, that you want to mention.
The only one I was going to mention that I didn't see on the list was Femaref Archer,
MRF Archer.
which I liked. And I think maybe this is just more because it was a little bit more relevant back then. Uh, because it was kind of a Sarah Angel killer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's 1 green, 2 colorless, 2/2, summon archers. I think that's what it still says. Uh, Tap Femaref Archers deals 4 damage to target attacking creature with flying. So direct damage in green kills a Sarah Angel or a Sengir.
Sengir.
Mostly
Yeah.
a Sarah Angel for 3 mana. So
And
pretty
in
cool.
green. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's not, something that green historically has had a hard time dealing with. Flyers. I always worry about flyers in green, even though I don't know that I need to as much as I did back in the day. But I do still. And it's probably because I have trauma from being murdered by so many Sarah Angels when I was playing green decks.
Mhm.
It's a pretty decent little card.
Yeah.
Yeah, some limitations you mentioned though. You're like, oh, it needs to be attacking and it needs to be flying. Maybe sideboard, maybe against Sarah. Yeah, sideboard if they're playing blue flyers, white
Mm.
flyers. Air elementals, they can blast an air elemental out of the sky too.
You know how I hate me some air elementals.
Those come your way sometimes. It will do nothing to a Mahamoti.
No. He
Nothing.
laughs at those puny arrows.
Anyways,
Anyways.
that's the end of segment one. I don't even know if I mentioned when I started this. This is segment one, commons and uncommons from Mirage that I want to discuss. We're going to move on to segment two now, as I'm getting some sort of strange error message from the MTG stocks page. We're going to move on to segment two, which is the Old Mage Commander Corner. This is where Alex and I continue to build our 2024 Commander decks. I'm going to start with adding some cards to my deck today. My deck is called a Deck. Why, you might ask? It's because my commander is a Togatog, and I thought that was a funny name. My Atogatog deck is, of course, running ATOGs, but not all the ATOGs. I'm just running the ATOGs that I wanted to play. Some of them are terrible. I'm not running the worst ones. I'm running what I think are the best ones. I'm also limiting this deck to old frame only cards, so I don't have that many ATOGs available to me. I'm focusing mostly on the ATOGs that eat artifacts and enchantments. And the deck is going to be heavily enchantment based. Because it's going to be enchantment based, I'm also running some enchantresses in my deck, Argothian Enchantress and Femaref Enchantress. I'm hoping these allow me to draw some cards. In addition to that, I'm running a lot of enchantments. It's a 5-color deck. I'm running what I think are the best enchantments in all 5 colors. I'm also running a lot of enchantments that you tend to see in Pillow Fort decks. So a lot of defensive enchantments. I'm trying to put a lot of defensive enchantments into this deck because I want to make sure I live long enough, or my goal is to make sure I live long enough to establish a board state that's big enough that I can actually feed things to my ATOGs and feed the ATOGs to the Atogatog for big attacks. That takes time. You need to kind of slow down the game to allow yourself to do that. So over the last few episodes, I've been adding some pillow fort style enchantments like Karmic Justice. Whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls destroys a non-creature permanent you control, you may destroy target permanent that opponent controls to prevent people from, targeting me with things. Worship, propaganda, stuff like that. Can you hear my cat meowing, Alex?
No,
I'm gonna go check
I hear
something real quick.
motorcycle people outside where I am
I'll
because
be
it's
right back.
Memorial Day and they're doing the motorcycle and
Oh my God. I surprisingly don't hear that much outside my window. I don't hear that many boats. I don't hear that many motorcycles. I have heard a lot the last couple days that people did all their partying a
they're
little
all
bit prior
hungover
to Memorial Day.
and
I'm
passed
gonna be
out.
back. I'm gonna be back in 1 minute. Anyways, I've been adding pillow fort enchantments over the last couple episodes. I'm gonna add one more pillow fort enchantment. You might ask me, Steve, what is that enchantment? And I'll
Steve,
say to
what's that
you,
enchantment?
I don't remember. Well, I got to try to figure it out real quick right here on the show
I knew you didn't
live.
remember. I thought you had already found it though.
It is an enchantment that is blue. It is two colorless, one blue. So I'm gonna look here in
Is that one that has like
Skyfall.
cages and stuff underground?
I don't remember. Blue, 3 mana cost, premodern legal enchantment. It's gonna come up really fast. It's another enchantment that I want to play to dissuade people or prevent people from attacking me. And it has something to do with basic lands. For each different basic land type I have, they have to pay 1 mana, or else they can't attack me with creatures. And this is a 5-color deck. I'm going to be running basics for each color. I'm going to have a land tax, so hopefully I can get those basics. And I just found out what the card is named.
Where do you see what card I add, Steve?
It is named Collective Restraint. Are you going to add some dumb card about
Some
basic
dumb
land?
card.
Some stupid card that's going to destroy my basic lands or something? Collective Restraint. Where did you go, Collective Restraint? I thought I just added you.
Sort of.
It didn't seem to add, so let me try that again. Collective Restraint. Collective Restraint, are you there? Are you there, Collective Restraint? There we are. No, it added Collective Resistance. Damn it. An instant
Hey, because that
collective.
anyways.
Here we go. Third time's a charm. Collective Restraint. There we go. It's 3 colorless, 1 blue enchantment from Invasion. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays. Oh, I did add it before. Now I have 2.
God.
Creatures can't attack. I'm not at my best right now. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller plays X for each creature attacking you, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. This cost is paid as attackers are declared. So hopefully this will dissuade people or prevent people from attacking me as often as they would if I had not had Collective Restraint.
Sure, yeah. Well, that'll stack with the propaganda, won't it?
Yeah.
So boom, yeah.
Propaganda each turn.
Having to pay like 7 to attack you.
Yeah. So just don't do it, people. Don't do it. And don't worry about anything. I'm not doing anything while you're over here not attacking me. I'm just playing ATOGs. There's no big deal.
Don't worry about it.
Don't you have other problems to deal with right now? Look at Joe. Look at what Joe's playing. Worry about Joe. Joe has 2 Night Stalkers on the board already. The next one's coming, and then bam, Spirit of the Night. You got to deal with Joe. So Collective Restraint is one. And then I'm going to add another card because I'm going to add more enchantments to this deck. I already have 14 enchantments, and a lot of the enchantments I'm running, like, they're really good. I want them. I need these enchantments to be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And people might remove them. So what do I do? How do I get them back? maybe I'll take this out of the deck, but for right now, I think I want to put a replenish in the deck.
As well. It's super strong.
I feel like it's super strong too. And
And
you
in a
know,
5-color deck with 5 different colors of enchantments, like, sure.
return all enchantments cards from your graveyard to play. Replenish, 3 colorless, 1 white. And I
I gotta
have
get
one.
one of these or 4 of these.
I randomly bought one like 8 months ago off of eBay. I don't know. I was up late at night. This is when I was buying a lot of Magic cards when we first got back into it. And I just saw like an auction for replenish ending in like 45 minutes. And I just put in a bid.
Oh,
And then I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh man, why did I buy that replenish? But now I have it. So it's going in it's going in a deck now.
no, I think it's a great move.
And I like it too, because I have a Tagatogs that eat enchantments. Uh I want to put some more spells in here to bring things back from the graveyard if I fed them to an Atagatog.
Yeah.
I put regrowth in here because it's classic, but regrowth just puts it just
Yeah.
takes 1 card from my graveyard and then
The
back into
card
my hand to
advantage with
replay it.
replenish is, you get so many more cards and they go right into play too. You're getting many times the card advantage of regrowth and without paying the mana for the spells.
Yeah, so I think in any deck that's running a considerable number of enchantments and enchantments that are important to your deck, especially a deck that also involves sacrificing the enchantments sometimes, why not run a replenish?
Yeah.
So those are
And
my
in
two
like
additions.
Sterling Grove, you can that sacrifices itself. So like, you have a few enchantments that might be moving to the graveyard on their own already, even without sacrificing them.
Yeah. So those are my additions for today: collective restraint and replenish to
Very
help bring
nice, very nice.
bring back my enchantments. Alex, your Seaton Crows and Protector deck
Yes, my deck of druids,
still in progress.
my mono green druid deck. Today I'm going to do some stuff with lands. I already did most of my land stuff, but I'm going to make a tweak. Two
Okay.
tweaks.
Tweaking the deck.
Tweaking the deck. So we're going to take out 2 forests.
Oh Jesus.
Make room.
Oh Jesus.
Take them out, Steve.
Taking
Chop 'em.
forests out of your
Chop 'em
mono
down.
green deck. Remove 1. Remove 2. Done.
Nice. Okay. In place of those forests, I will add a strip mine because I didn't do any lands that can remove other people's lands, and I don't think I have any land destruction in here, and I might need to get rid of someone's land.
Need a strip mine. Which one do you want to run?
Oh, I want the one with the little tower. I don't have it though.
You people in your tower strip
It's
mine.
so
This
cool.
isn't it's an inferior strip mine. I'm happy that it's the highest price because I get excited when the highest price one is the one that I don't like. Now, it's even better if the lowest price one is the one I like the most, which is not the case with the antiquities. My favorite are the ones that show sky. And they're
Yeah.
the intermediate price.
I do wish the tower one showed sky,
It'd be so much better.
but I like the tower on it. And it seems to me to be the rarest one, which makes it like have some like, I don't know, unique flavor to it.
It is the rarest one, I think. That's why it's more expensive.
And then in place of my other forest, I will add a Pendle Haven, which will allow me to boost many of my tokens and small druids, and maybe even help out one of my opponents for goodwill if I want.
I love the Pendlehaven.
Yeah. Now, the third thing I'm going to do may seem antithetical because I just added more non-basic lands to my deck. So I'm kind of doing 2 opposite things here, like a dummy. But I think for a mono green deck, this next card is a good addition. Primal Order.
Okay.
I think I had seen this before and then forgot about it. And I found it again the other day and I got really excited.
Homelands, right? This is it.
Yes,
Homelands?
I believe so.
It's one of the few good
One
cards
of
from
the
Homelands.
4 good cards in Homelands.
One of the cards from Homelands I need to pick up, but I haven't picked up. But I'm like, I should get this because it's actually quite good.
Primal Order is an enchantment. I think it's 2 green, 2 colorless.
That sounds right to me. We'll confirm. Correct.
During each player's upkeep, Primal Order deals to that player an amount of damage equal to the number of non-basic lands he or she controls. So, like I said, I just added a couple non-basic lands to my deck. But overall, I have mostly forests,
Yeah.
and some of my non-basic lands, like the strip mine, might not be hanging around very long to begin with.
Yeah.
My man land might get killed, and even worst case scenario, maybe I'm just taking 2 or 3 damage from my non-basic lands, but my opponents are going to be taking more.
You should, running a mono green deck, have far fewer non-basic lands than just about anybody you're going to be playing
Yeah,
against.
and it's not types of lands; it's literally every non-basic land. So,
Yeah.
uh, seems to me like a pretty decent card for a mono green deck.
I mean, if you can punish people for paying non-basics, punish people for playing non-basics. I think you should. Did I say punish people for being
You
non-basic?
said a couple things.
If you can punish people for playing non-basics, then you should punish people for playing
Yes.
non-basics. That's my opinion. How much is Primal Order right now? I think it's still cheap.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
think it's expensive.
it's not expensive because nothing from Homelands really is, but
Let me look.
uh,
I can add one
like
card if you want, or it can be done.
it's up to you. It's your deck, Alex. What do you
I'll
want to
just
do?
add one more card. I
Okay.
want to put a Citadel Druid in. I was on the fence about it, but it's just so classic for a Druid deck, and it's cool and old, and I have to do it.
You got to run a classic Druid. Yeah, Primal Order's still under $2, so that's
Yeah,
good.
$1.80. Okay. The art's not bad on it either. It's a pretty handsome looking card with the black border.
No, it's cool.
I don't really know what's going on if that's some sort of Earth globe thing
I think
on
it
it.
is.
It's kind of like a green winter orb artwork kind of thing. Can't even tell what's going on there.
Sentinel Druid.
Yeah. Sentinel Druid is a 1/1 for 1 green, 1 colorless from Antiquities. Whenever an opponent casts an artifact, it gets +1/+1 counter. Slight Monty Python reference in the artwork.
Driven mad
And
by the fall of Argoth, the Sentinel Druids found peace only in battle.
very like retro Magic card artwork. I feel like this is definitely like a 1993, 1994 card.
It's
In the
Jeff
artwork.
Menges, a classic 93, 94 Magic the Gathering artist.
But yeah, I feel like that's a decently safe include in this deck. I can chop it out if I needed something else, but you know,
I'd
pretty
do
cool.
it too. Druid
Yeah,
deck, I'd be like, I'm gonna throw a Sentinel Druid in there. We'll
yeah.
see. Maybe it'll come
get
out, but
bigger,
yeah.
probably.
I'm gonna pull up Primal Order real quick
Okay.
on Scryfall. Because Scryfall has higher resolution images.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, we're going to be done with episode 90 of the Old Mage MTG podcast. Homelands. It was printed in Homelands 5th edition and then Masters edition. So what's going on here? Are they two fallen trees? Are they
That's what it
fallen
looks like. Although
trees?
that tree kind of looks like the back of a green polar bear head looking at the orb.
I don't know what they are.
No,
But
it's
yeah,
a tree. And is there an elf on the tree to the left?
well, I thought there was an elf on the tree too, but then I'm like, I don't even know that there's anything on that
Can't
tree. It
tell.
might
It
just
just
be an
might be like
outgrowth of the
crud.
tree. Yeah. I think it's just all tree and forest and branches weaving around this orb that's trapped in the
That is the
forest.
earth or Dominaria.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's strange, but I can feel it when the land is corrupted. I understand why the autumn willow is so protective, says Daria.
Daria.
The non-basic lands being the corrupt lands, maybe. I don't know. I don't know a goddamn thing. What do I know? All I
But
know,
I think that's an interesting under the radar card too. So maybe someone else will think that that's
I
you know
like it.
an interesting commander pick
Yeah.
or yeah.
I don't know much, but I do know that this is the end of episode 90 of the Old Mage MTG podcast. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. It is Memorial Day here right now. It's the 27th. I want to go outside, get some sunshine, breathe some fresh air. Alex has some potato salad he needs to eat. I'm not sure what I'm going to eat yet. Didn't request anything special today. My mom said, it's Memorial Day. Do you want me to make anything like potato salad or something? And I said, no. Why did I do that? Because now, many hours later, now that I've been up for a long time, I'm hungry. I would like to eat some potato salad that somebody else made for me. I don't want to make my own potato salad. It's one of my least favorite things to make because you got to make all the potatoes first. You got
Yeah,
to
yeah,
boil the potatoes. You got to cut them all up. You got to mix them with all the stuff. Basically, what I'm describing is how you have to make any type of food. You have to take it, you have to cook it, and you have to slice it up. So it's not really more labor intensive than a lot of things that you make, but some days I just don't feel like cooking. And today is one of those days. I don't want to do anything other than what I did this morning, which was heat up a gluten-free English muffin in the oven and then slice open an avocado and spread some avocado on that bitch. That's the
that's why
extent.
you're going bankrupt, Steve. This is your avocado toast.
These were cheap avocados. They were from Aldi's. We purchased them in
Uh,
a net. You
it's
know, you get
literally
a
like the
little.
cheapest thing you could possibly eat. It's like
Avocados really aren't that expensive.
no,
Oh,
like for the calories and the nutrition you get from them,
no,
and
they're
piece
not.
of bread.
It's like a dollar.
Yeah.
A dollar. I swear, most of the time I go to the grocery store, like a fair size avocado is $1.99. And then when I eat an avocado, I usually eat a half at a time.
Yeah, because you're not a maniac.
And I'll put it in a salad or I'll put it on top of something else that is fairly cheap. So like I've added $1 and a lot of nutrition to my meal, and people are like avocado toast. Well, I don't go out and buy avocado toast. I make my own avocado toast. Now you might be saying, Steve, you said you took that avocado and you spread it on a gluten-free English muffin. You snowflake lib
Steve.
little bitch, gluten-free bullshit. Well, I'll say to you, I have a serious gluten intolerance issue, and I had a lot of stomach problems for like 10, 15 years of my young life, and it really affected my ability to do a lot of things. So
I was there. He
am
could barely read.
I am gluten-free for serious medical reasons. So shut up. I don't like the fact that I have to spend extra money to buy gluten-free bread. I hate the fact
No.
that
Yeah.
gluten-free bread's like $8 for a shitty loaf of bread when you could get
Yeah.
gluten full bread for like $2 for a nice loaf. I know it sucks, man. I would like to save the money on bread, but I
Gluten-free
can't.
bread.
It will destroy my insides. But that's all I have to say about that. Do you have anything you want to say to the listeners before we go, Alex?
No, thank you for tuning in. Happy Memorial Day.
Okay. Get some sunshine.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
I ain't gonna do this anymore. That's all for me. Goodbye.